Hello, this is Dr. Jaziri. What if I told you, by the way, I have 5 videos on coronavirus. If you want to look at them, I'll link the first one up here. And if you like this, if you like these videos, please subscribe. I'll put a link to subscription at the end of the video. What if I told you that there is a way that we can get rid of these pandemics permanently? If anybody is interested, raise your hand. Okay, good. I sense that all of you raised your hands. So I talked about this in my previous video, but I want to just go over it again. If you look at India, India has a population of 1.3 billion people. China has a population of 1.4 billion people. But India is a smaller country than China. So the population is even crammed next to each other, even worse than China. And as you know, these viruses jump from person to person. Even though India's economy has improved, there's still a lot of poverty there. I wouldn't consider it a sanitary country, as you know. If you look at all these people go in these rivers for religious ceremonies, and the cows are considered sacred, so they do their business on the streets, and nobody does anything about them. So the point I'm trying to make is a crowded country. Not very sanitary, but I challenge you to show me, have you ever heard of a pandemic coming out of India? I haven't. If you have, please comment below and put a link. So it's not being crowded, it's not necessarily being in an unsanitary area that causes these pandemics. And I talked in my first video about the coronavirus, about why, or maybe it was the second video, about why I think most of these pandemics come from China. But some of these epidemics and pandemics do occur even in our country. We've had some before. And this is not going to be easy for most of you to accept, but if you really want to get rid of these pandemics, we have to think about the way our diet is and how we obtain our protein. We started farming, and then we had animals. We learned to kill the animals and eat the meat, and that worked for a while, but we're getting to the point where that may not be the best choice for our protein. As the population is growing, we're cramming all these animals. So basically we're doing industrial animal farming. And all these animals are in close proximity. It does cause a lot of stress to them, which will lower the immune system too. And then if there's a virus, it can spread like wildfire. So we have to think about switching to plant-based protein. I mean, that really is the best way to get rid of these pandemics. If you look at animals and us are much more genetically close to each other than us and plants. And so if we switch to that, it's much harder for a virus to infect us. Now, I don't know if the governments are able to do that, because we can't just, tell people who are raising animals, hey, we're going to shut you down. I mean, that's not fair to them. They have to make a living too. So we have to help them accept and then help them transform from an animal farming business to a plant farming business. And my feeling is that probably the private sector has to get involved. It may be a combination of government and private sector. I don't know if the government alone can do this. So you know, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, Mr. Gates, you know, if any of you are listening, or if anybody has any way to give this video to them, especially Mr. Gates, you know, you've been talking about these pandemics and warning about them for years. And I know you do a lot of, well, I'm blanking out, a lot of charity work. Well, this may be your ultimate charity. If you can pull this through, that would be great. The problem is, and you know, I'm not a vegetarian. I mean, my favorite thing is to go to my favorite restaurant, have a filet mignon with my favorite bottle of wine, and then have a chocolate souffle there. But I have to tell you that I have tried 2 vegan hamburgers at 2 different restaurants, just out of curiosity, and actually I was pleasantly surprised. It was very juicy, it tasted pretty good, and it was filling. I mean, I thought I would be eating cardboard and then be hungry an hour later. It didn't happen. The problem is their ketchup. Ugh. The vegan ketchups, they need to do something about that. It tastes like, I'm going sideways, but it really tastes like tomato paste mixed with malt vinegar, and the malt vinegar is a little too much compared to the tomato paste. So if any of you are listening, please make it taste more like Heinz, please. But getting back on the freeway, so you know, so I mean, they you know, they're tasty. And I think most countries will do that. I think we eventually have to do that. As the population grows, you know, raising animals is just too labor intensive and cost ineffective, and it's not good for the planet. As you know, this is the only inhabitable place that we know of. And if any of you think we can go to Mars, I have some bad news for you. Look at my other videos and I've talked to you about that. The problem is convincing China, because, you know, a lot of these pandemics come from China because the way these animal markets are. You know, there are thousands of animals packed together. Their culture, you know, they do believe, for example, in eating raw, you know, chopped up testicles of a weird animal to give them sexual prowess and other things. So there is that belief, and you know, they have these huge markets, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and they have a very strong lobbying power. So how do we convince China? I think, you know, the only way is to show them that they can make a profit. You know, I mean, money always talks. So you know, probably like Shark Tank. You know, imagine if, you know, if we did a joint venture in America, and then we had, you know, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates walking down this long hallway, just like Shark Tank. And they walk into this big room with all the Chinese government elites sitting like this, you know. And then, you know, they pitch in this business model. Now, you know, I rarely watch TV, but that I would watch. I think that would be very exciting. So, you know, I'm not saying this is easy, but I mean, that's the only way to get rid of pandemics. I have to put an asterisk, though, because I said permanently. There has been never any report of... We didn't think that viruses from plants can infect humans, but there is one report of a virus infection that did go to humans, and it made some people ill, but nobody died. So I can't promise you 100%, but I can tell you it'd be highly, highly, highly unlikely. And if we do get a pandemic from plants, it may be once every century or 2 every century, not right now. And insects, you know, we may have to look at insects as well. I mean, you know, we probably will be forced to, but why not get to it sooner rather than later? So, meanwhile, I don't know what, there's no solution. We have to accept the fact that we will have a pandemic, at least one every decade. Most likely it will originate from China. The Chinese government will try to, you know, hide it as long as possible because they don't want their image to look bad. And some of us, unfortunately, will die. Now, you know, there's a lot of these conspiracy theories about China producing this virus. All I can tell you that all the virologists have said that we just simply don't have the technology to create a virus that's specific. And I tend to agree with them. So this is, you know, nature has been doing this for millions of years. We are just creating an environment for it to do what it's doing. And so, you know, we are really the problem. And it's not the Chinese or the Russians or this and that. The human race is what's causing this problem. But one thing we hopefully will learn from this pandemic is that we were unprepared. I mean, Bill Gates is right. He said that 5 years ago. He said it now. And you know, you know, China was able to contain this pandemic because I think they expect this. I mean, they get it every few years. And unfortunately, because they're a communist country, sometimes they're more effective in certain things. One of them is controlling things. And so, you know, who knows what happened with these people who got these virus. I mean, are they still alive or they got rid of them? I mean, I don't know. But the point is that they will do whatever it takes to control these viruses. And I'm not saying we should go that far, but we need to be more prepared for pandemics. Because they are going to come, like I said, at least one every decade. So hopefully, you know, each state, you know, or the government somehow can convince each state to have a standard of care, because that's the problem we have in this country. Each state has its own authority, and some states just don't want to do what's best necessarily, for whatever reason. So hopefully we'll learn some lessons, and again, you know, if you guys think this is the way to go, please, you know, talk to your representatives. Hopefully we can lobby to at least start this process going, and we can slowly move from, you know, meat-based protein to plant-based. Now, I'm not saying that we can't have any meat. I mean, obviously, we can still have farms that are set up to minimize risk of, you know, these pandemics, and they can be controlled and watching that the animals are not cramped next to each other. Obviously, that will increase the price of meat, and so it may become really a luxury rather than something you can have all the time. And some of you may not like that, but, you know, there's a saying, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Well, I guess you can have your steak and eat it too as well. You know, what's more important to you? You have to decide. All right. Well, meanwhile, while this pandemic is going on, you know, be safe. I said it in my previous video, part 5 of my coronavirus update. I really think, you know, don't get too relaxed. We still need to practice social isolation and washing hands and all that. I know it's been, the deadline by the president is April 30th. I really think we should go until end of May. Have some extra cushion. So be safe, wash your hands before you touch your face. That's how viruses can get in, through one of these holes. And if you use a lot of alcohol-based sanitizer, remember, if you use it a lot, it can dry your hands and then you get cracks on your skin. So soap is still better. If you don't have soap, at least, you know, try to use the alcohol-based sanitizers less often. All right. Well, let's hopefully this will be over soon. Thanks for watching.